Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us for the weekly Thursday training call. We're going to begin in just a moment here. You guys should be seeing my screen come into view. But for today's session, we're going to be covering open house flyers and seller buy-down strategies. So if you're wondering how to prepare those open house flyers or even what the seller buy-down strategy is, today we're going to cover it in detail. So I'm going to show you how to go from start to finish, just straight from a realtor listing and produce an open house flyer. And then I'll show you how you can also turn that into a seller buy-down strategy. So I will have the questions open throughout the entire call. So if you do have a question, make sure to type it into the GoToMeeting toolbar in the questions area, and then I'll be monitoring that. As I see those come in, I'll go ahead and address them for you. All right, so first things first, anytime you're doing a new partner flyer, whether it's an open house flyer or seller buy-down strategy, you're going to be using the partner side of Edge. So instead of doing a new client, you're going to do a new partner. Now your partner information you can find by, in this case what I'm going to show today is just trolling a listing off of Realtor.com, finding information about this person, and then contacting them with a presentation. So what I did is I actually went to Realtor.com and I searched out just a local listing here. Let's see if I can find that for you. So what I did is I just typed in my my zip code here, that's 92618, and then I've just found a listing that I thought would be okay. See this guy right here. Now, as you can see, even on Realtor.com, they do give a lot of information about the house, so you have a lot of detail that you can put into your presentation. One thing that you're going to find is usually the agents' emails are not listed on these sites anymore. They used to be, but they've since taken that down, and they've got contact request forms now that that work in place of those. Now, that said, there's always ways to find out the information, so I'm going to show you a couple of different ways you can do that. So first thing I'm going to do though is I know this guy's name. This is Peter Hicks, so I'm going to go ahead and just copy that, and I'm going to put it straight over into Edge. And then phone number and all the other contact information, I might as well collect that right now before I even start doing the listing information. So what I did to find out is on the listing itself, and let me show you that listing. We know that he's definitely with RE/MAX, and if we want to go straight over to RE/MAX's site, we can actually go there, and there's usually a contact profile for each one of the agents. So what I did is I actually just went to the site, searched for this guy, Pete Hicks, and you can see I've got phone numbers given. This is awesome. This is my immediate contact point. So I'm going to pull that direct line, and I'm going to go straight back over to Edge, and I'm going to go to the contact information area. And actually, his phone number would be in the front here. So I'll put the phone number here. And this is going to be a realtor. Referred by, I'm just going to put where I found it. So this was on Realtor.com. And friendly name, I always recommend you use the property address for this. It's going to help you identify it. If you have more than one particular presentation for this realtor, the easiest way to identify it is going to be the friendly name. So let's grab that listing information. That is 80 Tangerine, and I'll even mark the city down there. Now, of course, this is the same information here for street address, so I'm just going to paste that again. And that's Irvine, California. And let's see what that was, 92618 as well. Now, property information, we've got some additional features that we can put in here, things like asking price and so forth. They're all on this listing, so you can see that's right here. It's 610,900. Now, be careful about copying things like this that actually have a $ or a comma in there. You're going to find that when you paste it into Edge, it'll cut it off wherever that comma is because it doesn't recognize that as a valid figure. It'll put it in there for you, though. So you're just going to manually type this, 610,900. And as you can see, when you type it in, Edge automatically puts in the $ and the comma for you. Now, square footage, let's check that out. Looks like we got 1448. Number of bedrooms. This is a 3-bed and 2 full bath. So I will put those in. And listing link. Now, this is not going to show up on your presentation, but it's a great point of record for you. So if you need to get back over to this listing at any time, you can easily get there. So I'm actually just going to copy the link to this particular listing, jump back over into Edge, and paste it in there. Now the next step is the more features. As you can see, there's lots of features in here that you can choose from. You don't want to really overdo it. Only about 10 or 11 will fit on the actual flyer. So just choose the ones that you feel are the most important for this particular property. So I'm going to eyeball what it's got here and we'll start putting things in. So if we look at our property details, it gives us a little bit more. You can see we've got a breakfast counter bar, we've got a laundry area, there's vaulted ceilings. I definitely want to say something about that, so I think I'm going to put that in a custom feature. If I want to talk about the roof, or we can see that it has 2 stories, I'm definitely going to indicate that. So let's start putting some of those in. So we'll do the 2 or more stories. I'm going to use a custom feature that says vaulted ceilings. And let's jump back over there and see what else we have. We do have an in-house laundry area, so I'm going to definitely make note of that. We've got a laundry room. We have a 2-car garage, so I'm definitely going to put that in there. And then heating and cooling, it looks like we've got all central for everything, and we've got a fireplace. So I will do the fireplace here. There's central heat, central air, fireplace. And we've got a 2-car garage on there. And oftentimes I see people putting in the school district. So the school district is a great piece of information to put in that custom area if you'd like. This does have a pool, so I'm going to make sure and put that in, but I'm going to put the school district as well. So let's get our swimming pool, and then I'm going to paste in Irvine Unified School District. And this one I'll put as a single family home, and then I'm going to hit OK. Now you don't have to go crazy on all the features. There's actually an additional notes section so you can put a little bit more verbiage around specific features around the property. But for now we're just going to put in enough to kind of fill that right side column and give a good overall view of what this property is. Now the next step is to capture an image of the property. Now you don't need 3 images, you only need 1 because only 1 is actually going to show on your presentation. But you can have up to 3. And the reason we do this is if you wanted to do a seller buy down and an open house flyer on this same property, you can choose different images for each presentation. So for this case, I'm only going to choose 1. So I'm going to go back up to the top of this listing. I'm going to click on larger photos. And these are the ones I want to save. So let me find a good one of the front of the house. That looks like the back of the house, but I think that'll probably work. Doesn't look like there's a whole lot of images on this one, so I think I will use that one. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to right click on it and do Save Picture As. And I'm going to put it on my desktop, and I'm just going to call this House Front. And then once you've got it saved, all you have to do is jump back over to Edge. You're going to hit Browse, and that'll bring up a browse window for you. And I'm going to start typing in the name of that particular file that I saved and open it. And now it's in there. Now the picture name and the description, these are not important at all. I would advise that you just leave these as is after you upload your image. These don't appear anywhere on your report. So when you get to the end, however, if you don't have a name for your file, it's going to be a little tricky picking your picture. So just leave the name that comes in there as the default. Now, if you wanted to do additional ones, you could click on these tabs and enter additional information. You pull in new pictures. And then we're going to get into the products. But I see we have a question real quick, so let me make sure and address that. Jimmy's question, he says, can you please be sure to comment on how the realtor will be able to use his Edge presentation? Facebook, their website, email, or other? What should I suggest to them? So, great question, Jimmy. There's actually, you're right on target with that. It's all of the above. They can use this on their website. They can actually post a link to their website. They can append it to the notes on the MLS listing if they'd like. They can put it directly in email to any of their clients, of course. They can put it on blogs. Basically anywhere that they can put a link out there, that link is dynamic. So it doesn't matter where it is. When somebody clicks on it, it's going to take them to this presentation. Now Facebook and Twitter. Now when you get to social media, you want to actually be they're probably kind of ahead of you in the game when it comes to social media because this is the world they're living in, is that social environment. So they probably have existing tactics for how they do their listings on their Facebook and Twitter. That said, what you can tell them is, and I'll show you this when we get to the actual end of the presentation, is that this link can be shared at any time. So when they are viewing the actual report, all they have to do is hit the share button at the lower right corner of the screen, and they can share that directly to Facebook. And it wouldn't be their personal page. They could share that to their business fan page. So I'll show you that when we get to the end of the presentation, but to answer your question, Jimmy, all of the above. So, you want to have them put it anywhere you possibly can. And what's going to help sell that point for you is the more co-branding you do within the presentation and within the video, it's going to help sell them. So it's going to be a lot easier for them to want to put it up all over the place because they've got this immediate product that has all the branding over it. It has, kudos about them, and they didn't really have to do anything to get this produced. All they have to do is push that link wherever they want. But we'll talk about that a little bit more when we get to the end of the presentation and we're looking at the actual output. Oh, Jimmy's second question, if the MLS listing, do you give the entire Edge link? Give them the short link. So the one that says mcedge.tv/xxxxx, that's the one you want to give them. It's nice and short. It's going to appear on the listing, and it won't be too long to go out of the notes section. So definitely would recommend that one. All right, so let's get into our product offerings. Now, product offerings are a bit tricky when it comes to an open house flyer because you don't have a specific client in mind. So really what you've got to go with is what is the area you're looking at and what is the purchase price? So that's going to help you determine what kind of financing they can use. Now, obviously, if I want to keep this at a conforming loan amount, I'd have to make my base loan amount $417, which is going to require a pretty big down payment. So I would probably end up looking at jumbo pricing on this one. But I might actually show that conforming amount as one of the options on the open house flyer because if a borrower is in that position to take advantage of it, he's certainly going to get better rates going with the conforming versus the jumbo or the conforming agency one. So let's start with a 20% down. I just want to see where that ends us up. So that's at $488. So we're still going to be over the conforming limit. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to show this one as conforming. That's going to require a $193,000 down payment. So what I'm going to put here is conforming 30 fixed. And then I'll put the rate that I can get for that. Let's say it's about 4.375 on a 30-year term. Now closing costs, specifically on an open house flyer, these aren't going to show up. So what you're concerned with really, the open house flyer will show a total cash to close. And that does include the closing costs that you put in here. But it's not going to detail all the line items. So don't worry about being too nitpicky on getting the fees exactly right. Remember, this is pre-application. This is even pre-conversation with the borrower. So we don't know what these finalized fees are going to be. We kind of have to guess at it a little bit. Now, I will tell you, if you've got templates already created, that's the best way to do it because it'll give you a good ballpark idea of what kind of closing costs you're going to need to expect. So I'm going to choose my 30-year fixed purchase. And I'll probably have to raise my loan origination a little bit because this guy's going to be a higher value property. And then just make sure you've got everything right. Usually owner's title is going to be paid by the seller, but it's up to you as to whether you want to put it that way for now. Again, the contributions, the individual details are not going to be shown on this open house presentation. And in fact, it's just a snapshot of what the payment is. So the long-term ramifications of any of these fees or the interest they're paying over time are not going to be shown. That's when you would use a total cost analysis. But let's put some ballparks in for our hazard and taxes. And then I'm going to apply that to the loan. I'll also put in 15 days prepaid interest just as a ballpark idea as well. And I'm going to keep it uniform between each of the products. So all of them will have prepaid interest on them. All of them are going to have the exact same fees. So really the cash to close will be dependent on what that down payment is going to be. So I'll pop in my estimated hazard and taxes. And I use the factor percentages here so that when I copy this product to my second product on this presentation, it'll automatically copy those figures, and it'll base those ratios will determine what these hazard insurance and property tax amounts are. Now in this case, we don't need MI because we're under 20% equity. We're over 20% equity. So we don't have to worry about that. So I'm going to leave MI off of this one, and I'm going to add another product. Now the second one, I'm going to put 20% down. Oops, got to get a percent sign in there. And for this, I'm just going to use that copy button. I'm going to copy that conforming 30. And all I'm going to do is toggle this to be 20%. Now, since it is over the conforming limit, I'm probably going to get a little bit higher rate on this one, so I'll push that rate up a little bit. I don't have to do anything with my fees. Those are already set, and my escrows are fine. I don't need MI because I'm right at that cutoff. I'm right at the threshold. So I'm going to add an additional product. So for this one, I'm going to do a 10% down. And I'll even include MI, so with MI. And then I'm going to copy that conforming loan again. And I'm just going to come in here and change my down payment percentage to 10%. And then I'll update my rate. Fees and costs are fine, so we don't need to do anything with those. We're just going to go straight over to the mortgage insurance. And since this one's going to be conventional, use probably a 0.9 factor or something like that. This checkbox to calc MI on balance, you're only going to use this for government loans, so do not check this box for your conventional loans. This tells Edge that MI payment needs to decline every year based on an average 12 months balance. And the only ones that do that are the government loans. So don't check this for conventionals. All you need is that 78% cutoff. So I'll add one more product, and this is going to be 10% down, no MI. And I'll copy that last product that I did. Now it's up to you in terms of how you want to attack this one. When you're talking about no MI, there's a couple of ways to do it. It could be lender paid MI, or it could be maybe a single premium buyout like we discussed on yesterday's training call. But for this case, what I think I'll do is I'll just pad the rate to cover MI. So I'm going to increase this to 5.5. So this is effective lender paid MI. And then I'm going to zero out the MI. All right, so I've got 4 solid products against each other. The analysis screen, this is really just for your view at this point because you're not going to be showing any of this on the open house presentation. So just good to eyeball it and see what the differences are between them. And then when you hit the right arrow, now we get into the more detailed information about this partner. Now, I knew he was from RE/MAX, so I'm going to put that in. And then I did find a little bit of information about him. Remember, we saw this page here. There's no fax number for him, but there is a fax number for the main office, so I am going to put that in there. Now, if you were able to recover a cell phone somewhere around here, you can see that his direct and his mobile, it's the same. So this is his cell phone number. It's up to you if you want to list it twice on the presentation. Not entirely necessary, but completely up to you. I'm going to leave it off for this one. Now, the email address, we don't know this yet. So we'll come back to this in just a second. License, we may be able to find here as well. Let's see what we've got. He was licensed in 2009. And it doesn't show his particular licensing information, but that's one of those things that we definitely want to collect. We could actually even look up his licensing pretty easily online, but I'm just going to enter some sample information for that one. And then the realtor's website. You can actually publish this one if you want, but this is a pretty long link, and it's not going to go the way you expect it to. This is going to be too long for the presentation. So you have a couple of options here. You could make a bit.ly link out of this, and if you guys are familiar with bit.ly, what that is just a link shortener. So you'd go to bit.ly, you'd copy this link into bit.ly, and it makes a very short link that will point to this. And it's actually a great, it gets a great reach out for people because 10-to-1 Pete Hicks, when he signs his stuff, when he puts out his marketing presentations, he's putting out this really long address, and people aren't able to necessarily copy that down. If they see it somewhere, there's no way they're going to remember it. But something like bit.ly will give you the opportunity to give them a really small link that goes directly to his site. 10-to-1, it's going to blow him away because now he's got an additional tool, additional resource that he can use. And in fact, if you like, you can even, periodically on bit.ly, it actually gives you some really good reporting that lets you know how often the link's been clicked. So you could actually even follow up with that agent to tell him, hey, that link that I created for you that points to your site, that's been used X amount of times in the last week. So we know that you're getting traction directly from my presentation. Okay, so I got a couple of questions about that one, so let me show you what that looks like. The name of that website is Bitly, so bitly.com. And you will have to sign in. It's free, so don't worry about it. You will have to sign in. But what you do is, as soon as you get to the page, you copy that link that you wanted to shorten, and then you just literally paste it in right there and hit shorten. Now, once you're signed in, you can actually use this link already, but once you're signed in, you could do a little bit more tracking of it. So it's a good idea to sign in. And it looks like Jimmy actually found Pete's main site. It's pete-hicks.com. So thank you, Jimmy. And if you could, Jimmy, comment on where you found that. Did you find that on LinkedIn? Did you look him up on Facebook, or was it just a Google search? I'm sure it's going to help others on the call for doing this kind of thing. It was on the RE/MAX site. Okay, great. Thanks, Jimmy. So yeah, the RE/MAX site is it's going to give you a good amount of information. As Jimmy noted, there was a little bit more than I got to see. I must have missed that when I was looking through it. But you can do that, or if you can't seem to find a website for them, you can try this Bitly idea here, which there's my new short link that actually points to this incredibly long link. So the good thing is his regular site is pretty short, so I won't use a Bitly for this one. I will actually use the PeteHicks.com one. But feel free to use that shortener service. It actually works for a lot of great things. Whenever you want to post something that's kind of long, a long link that doesn't really have that traction, it's not memorable, and you want to change it into something that's shorter and easier to get to, that Bitly site will be a great resource for you. Because like I said, it does offer you tracking as well, so you can find out how often that link's getting clicked. But let's put in his main site. Now, street address, it's up to you. You can put the street address for the realtor in there if you want. They don't tend to care about that on the flyer. So if you've got it, great. If you don't worry about it too much. And I keep blacking out here. All right, let's see what we've got. So it looks like he doesn't have a direct address here. I'm sure we can find that if necessary. But if we look for agents' offices, I'm sure we can find the Irvine office for RE/MAX. Now for this case, though, I'm going to leave the street address completely out. Nobody really cares where the agent's office is. They care that the agent's willing to meet them at the property. So I'll leave that out of there. But what you can do is, if you don't have an address, you can reuse these fields. So for instance, best agent in Irvine. It's obviously pretty cheesy. You can come up with something better than that, but you can reuse these fields for whatever you need to. So I'm going to put a little motto or a tagline about this realtor here. Now the last step is a headshot and a logo for him. Now those ones, you may or may not be able to find a headshot for him easily, but most of the times these guys are on LinkedIn, they are on Facebook, and it's pretty easy to find those. But we do have an image already, so I'm going to use this logo. And I'll do save picture as. I will put it on my desktop. And this is going to be RE/MAX logo. Jump back over to Edge, and I will browse, oops, wrong one. I got to browse in the logo field for the RE/MAX logo. Okay, so that's in there. Now all I've got to do is find a headshot for this guy. And it doesn't look like he publishes a headshot right here, but I'm going to try the site that Jimmy found. So let's try that. So there we go. We actually do have an image right up here on the top left. And we can just right-click on that guy, do Save Picture As. And I will call this Pete. Jump back over to Edge, browse for that file, type in Pete, there we go. And now we've got both a photo and a logo for this person. So good news, we're most of the way through this. Now the last section here is we need to choose which presentation we want to show. Now we can do both, so don't feel like you have to choose just one or the other. This is just what direction we're going to generate a link. If I choose seller buy down and continue through these prompts, it's going to generate a seller buy down link for me. If I choose open house, which is what I'm going to do first, it's going to generate an open house link. Both will be completely separate, but they're both attached to this file, so they're going to carry the products that you used right here. and they can both have individual videos on them. So lastly, I want to choose which products I'm going to show, and in the beginning at least, I'm going to show all 4 options. And then after I've had my conversation with the realtor, if he wants to show less options or if he wants to show different options, I can come in and make modifications to the products themselves, or I can exclude specific products if he just doesn't want to show those, and it'll automatically update the link I've already sent him. So presentation title, this is going to be at the very top of your open house flyer. You can come up with something catchy. Usually there's something pretty good on the actual listing. Let's see if we can get that to come in here. I don't know why this page keeps blacking out on me every time I leave it. There we go. So you can see under the property details, he's already got some verbiage here. We can probably just choose some select verbiage here. Let's see. I would say gorgeous 3-bedroom home. There we go. Now pricing label, this is actually kind of important. Most times, and it's completely up to you as to how you want to say this, but this is asking you whether you want to call it asking price, whether you want to call it list price. They don't really give you any information on what this is, how static this is. But you can tell how long this listing has been online, and if it's been online for a long time, it's probably not that static anymore. You can probably use something like asking price. But if it's a brand new listing that just came online, this is probably going to be list price, or it's going to be sale price or something like that. But again, it's up to you. You got to kind of gauge how your realtors react to different ways of pitching this. I mean, they're obviously going to tell you. You talk to them and you mention list price, they'll say, no, that's the sales price. They're usually pretty adamant about what they want to call that. So I would call this sale price, and then put my colon in there. Now note that you don't need to put the price again in here. It's going to pull it in from the price we entered earlier. So all we're doing is putting in the label. Now notes, this is where you can put some additional color around this listing. So if there was specific information that's not covered in those more info sections and you didn't have enough room in the custom features, you can add stuff here. So if we wanted to put a little bit more in there, one thing I am going to put is I'm going to make sure that everybody knows that this includes taxes and insurance. So payments shown include taxes and insurance. And then something about the property. So let's see what else we got on this listing that we can use. And actually, look, there's association dues, so I need to make sure and put those into each one of my products. There is a 167 association due. I'm going to run back over to products real quick. And then I'll update my notes just to include that the HOA payment's also in there. Now, a quick shortcut to jump to this particular screen of each product. As you can tell, if I just hover over and choose this guy, I'm still going to have to go 2 screens over in order to get to the monthly escrows. So the quick way to do it is go to the next product and then go back 1 screen. And then now I'm in that escrow section again. I'm just going to pop in my 167. And I'm going to do the same thing for the 3rd property. So I'll go to the 4th, or product I should say. Go back 1 screen and then pop in my 167. And then for the last product, I'm going to go straight to the analysis screen and go left 1 time. And then put in my HOA dues. There we go. All right, so those are now covered. So I'm going to go back to the presentation area where I was completing the property notes. So now I'm going to say payments shown include taxes, insurance, and HOA dues. And let's see if there's additional color that we can put in about this property. So location is actually, there you go, it's on a golf course. All right. Actually, I should say located in a golf course area. That would probably be better. And actually, you could even use this for part of your title. You could say something like golf course living. It tends to be a very attractive title for a property like this. Now here's where you select that property image. So remember, we actually uploaded the image already, but if I don't select it yet, if I don't select it in this process right here, it's not going to show up on my flyer. So I've got to make sure and left click on the one that I want. So had I uploaded multiples, we'd see multiples in here, and I could choose the one I actually want to use. Now last step, very important, because you're putting rates out there, you got to make sure you got a quote date on there. So make sure that that lines up. And then you want to be notified when the report is viewed. And the call button, you know, it's up to you if you want to use the click to call, but I'll disable it for now. And then the last step, generate your link. And there's the link that I can use for this presentation. Now this is the one that you want to make sure gets pushed out everywhere. So when the agent is considering putting a link somewhere, give them this short link. Don't give them the long one that it translates to after they click on it. And then finally, I would add an audio video to this, especially since you know this is going to be shared on different pages, different sites. It may be emailed around. You want to make sure that there's a video that follows it that not only talks about your relationship with this particular realtor partner, but it also talks about the financing options you're offering. Most consumers are terribly confused about how mortgage options work, so they may not understand why you're showing such a wide variety of down payment options, and they might not even know what MI is. So I would make sure to cover those type of things in the video so that when that gets passed around, my advice goes with it. Now, the other thing you can do here is once you've got it done, you can always come back to this presentation and hit the share button if you'd like. But what I would say is go ahead and preview this. You want to make sure you know what this presentation looks like before you send it out. Okay, so there we go. Now, as you can see, pretty straightforward. We've got our property image up on the left. We've got our features down here on the right. And we've got each individual program that's being offered. Now, you'll notice here that we added the payment stream to the open house flyer, and this is just the live version of the flyer. The printed version does not have this payment stream button on it, so don't worry about it. It's not going to get in your way. But for compliance purposes, we want to make sure that this gets out there so when it gets passed around, you know, the APR can be proven. Anytime we're showing an APR, good idea to show a payment stream. Now, here's when your notes show up. So those additional notes that I loaded in there, you can see I've got quite a bit of room in the live version. I'm going to be just about right about perfect room when I get to the print version, so I'll show you that. Now I've got my agent information, and I wanted to draw your attention to this. This is that little catch line I used instead of his address, so keep that in mind. You can use just about whatever you want in there. And you'll notice that he's got a clickable website link there as well, just like you do. Now, once we get his email address, you know, we'll have to obviously either research it or call him up to start the conversation and get the email address so that we can send this to him. I mean, it's a great hinge for that conversation. You've already prepared this report for him. You know, it's an open house presentation showing a bunch of different options, and you'd like to show how you can co-brand it with him. Can I have your email address so that I can send you a copy of this so you can check it out? So it kills like 9 birds with one stone. So definitely a great inroad there. But before you send it out, make sure and hit the print button down here. Make sure that your print copy looks the way you want it to look, because if this is going to get printed out, and you know often it will, got to make sure everything fits on the page. So one of the things that I did wrong that you probably see here is you notice that my 4th product is drifting out of view. It's not going to show up in print. So had I not hit this print feature to check and make sure that everything fits, I would have sent this off. He would have printed and went, well, what in the world are you doing? It's not even fitting here. So what happened here is that my product names are a little bit too long. For best results, we want to keep these under about 12 characters. Now that includes spaces. That's going to ensure that everything will fit. So I'm going to go back into my presentation and I'm going to refine those product names a little bit. So let's, I think the conforming 30 fixed will probably be okay. That's right at about 12 characters. This guy might be a little bit long, so I'll just call this one 20% down. And for this one, I'm just going to get rid of a couple of characters. And then the final one, I'll do the same thing. So this is also another reason why it's very important for you to put a video on this, because the way you have to shorten these to make sure that everything fits appropriately, sometimes your naming conventions may not be understandable by the client or even by the realtor for that matter. So make sure that you talk about what these are during your video. So let's go back and preview it one more time and see how it looks now. Give me just a second here. I'm going to close out some of these windows so this goes a little faster. There we go. Okay, so those look a little bit better. Let's check in print and just make sure that everything looks right and everything fits. Perfect. All right, now it all fits in there. I'm not going to have any problems with this. It looks nice. This can be printed right now, and it's going to look just fine. Now, I will tell you that the best results you're going to get for print are always going to be hitting the print button off the live preview here. So if you send your agent a link and they click print down here, that's going to be the best possible option for them. If you print from within Edge, meaning you select print here and then go forward, it sometimes gets a little tiny bit blurrier than it does off the live presentation. It's just got to jump through an extra hoop to try and print from this Flash application. So your best results are always going to be, choose the email link here, preview it, and then once you've got your preview up, hit the print button down in the lower right and print it directly. Now I see a lot of people doing print to PDF here. You don't necessarily need to do that. If you hit the save button down here, it will save this as a PDF. So don't need to do it. Now I know that some people use print to PDF functions because they want to have a little bit more control of the layout and they want to be able to edit it a little bit more, and that's perfectly fine. If you want to do that though, you're going to notice that you're going to get a blue line down the right side of your PDF when you use that kind of a function. So I'm going to show you a quick workaround on that one of our members actually showed me not too long ago. So once you've got the print open here, if you do have a print to PDF feature, you're going to hit the print button, and then instead of choosing one of your printers, you're going to choose your PDF feature. So whichever one it is, I actually have a full version of Adobe that would probably be best for this. But once you choose that PDF printer, you've got to go into the preferences, and instead of printing it as a letter size, you're going to print it as 7.5 by 10. Then you're going to hit OK and hit print. It's going to ask you where you want to save it, so I'll just call it OHF 2 PDF and hit save. Now once you do that, it's going to, it depends on the program you're using, it could take a minute to generate that PDF, but it'll usually give you a preview of what it looks like afterwards, and you could then send that out. So you can see that my PDF has been created, and I didn't get that horrid blue line on the right side because I used that resizing method. Instead of choosing letter size, I chose the 7.5 by 10. So it's up to you. If you want to do it that way, that's perfectly fine. You can always, like I said, just use the save button down in the lower right here. It will save a PDF for you. But if you are into editing those a little bit, feel free to do the print to PDF. Just make sure to adjust the size. So Jimmy's question, can we duplicate or copy an open house for use with other properties or other realtors too, like a TCA, to use as a template? So yes, absolutely. The way to do it, and there's a couple of ways. If you're in the presentation already, just like in the total cost, you can go to the analysis screen and you can hit copy analysis. Now the good thing about this is you can choose to do it under the current partner. So for instance, if you're doing 4 different listings for this partner, you can copy this presentation out 4 different times and just change the friendly name for each one of the listings and change the street address on each one of them. And now you've got 4 of the same product offerings, but they're obviously going to have different prices, so because they're different properties. So you go in and make the adjustments on each individual one. Now, if you were doing this for a new partner, so not the same one that we're working on right now, we want to create a new record out of this, we can hit New Partner. You hit OK. And what it's going to do is it's going to make a copy of all the products and the property information, but it's going to strip off the realtor information. So now you can put whichever realtor you want in here. So let's call him realtor number 2. And then you would fill it out just as you would before, but because I use the copy button, you can see it copied the property address. So this I'd probably need to update, obviously, if I was doing different properties. I'd need to update my images. Really, the only thing I care that got copied would be the products. So the other method that I was talking about earlier is copying it under the existing partner. So if it's another listing for this partner, hit OK. And what it'll do is it keeps the realtor's information. So you don't have to redo this every single time you get a new listing from this particular realtor. So this realtor too, I just created a copy inside of it. So there's now going to be 2 different ones. So I'll call this one second copy, and I'm going to show you what this looks like in the home screen. But by doing that copy, it still copies everything over, but it brought all the realtor's information with. So all I have to do is modify the actual property information. But let's take a look at what that looks like in the home screen. So Peter Hicks was my initial one, and then Realtor 2 was a secondary one. So we'll look both of those up. I'm going to go to View All. Now you can see with Peter Hicks, I didn't make a copy under that presentation. So it's only got one presentation, and that's that 80 Tangerine. Now with Realtor 2, I made another copy under that realtor. So you can imagine that this is 123 any street, this is 456 different street. So this is how you group your listings for a specific realtor, is you keep copying within the same realtor partner. Now if you're not copying the analysis, that's perfectly okay. What you can do is you can add an analysis. So if I go to that specific realtor, I can hit Add Analysis, and it's going to append one underneath that. So this is going to be Property 3. And let's go back home, and I'll show you what that looks like. So now when I go into Realtor 2, I've now got a third property in there. So each one of these is a singular presentation. It's got, you know, all the products that you copied in. The videos do not copy over when you copy these. Just so you're aware, you're going to have to record a new video for each one of these presentations. It's not possible to copy those. Those are streaming videos that are stored on our server. It's just no way to get it over to a new presentation for you. But that said, it's very easy to group these open house flyers under a specific realtor or copy to different ones. All right, so let's say now that I've talked to Mr. Hicks and he liked my open house flyer, and he said, you know what, I have a feeling this seller's asking a little bit too much on this one, but I don't want to tell him to drop his price. Do you have any other options that I can offer? Well, of course, Mr. Realtor, I've got a seller buy-down strategy where he can make a small concession on the back end and sell it at asking price. And you can go over the benefits of what that covers. So I'm going to do that with you. But what I'm going to do is, if he told me he wants a different type of option here, I'm going to go back to Select Report. And instead, I'm going to choose the seller buy-down strategy. And then for compliance, always make sure you put your payment notes in here. And actually, these ones include HOA as well, as I recall. So I've chosen the seller buy-down. And when I go forward in the screen, I'm going to be asked for some additional information about this. Now, my standard rate right now, that 4.375, that's on the conforming loan. So remember, you've got to choose which loan you want to use for this seller buy-down. I'll go back one screen and show you that. So you can see there's my conforming 30 fixed. That's what I'm going to base the buy down on, or I could do it on the 20% down. Completely up to you. It kind of depends on what niche you're looking at getting here. On the higher property homes here, it may be a little bit easier for you to do that 10%, you know, with a lender paid MI. But I'm going to use the 20% down for now. So at this point, I'm going to need to go find out some information, and I need to find it out from my lock desk. I'm going to call my marketing department, call my lock desk, and I'm going to find out exactly how much I can buy down this particular rate and how much it's going to cost. So if I call my lock desk and they say, yeah, well, you've got a 4.5% rate right now, you can buy that down to 4, but it's going to cost you 1.25 points. So what I'm going to do is, if I can buy it down to 4, my change in rate is going to be 0.5 point. Now I know that this is going to cost me 1.25, so I need to find out what that equates to as a dollar amount. the easiest way to do this is go back into that product, and this was the 20% down. Go to the points section, and then type in your 1.25. Come on, there we go. And then just hover over it. It tells you exactly how much it is. The points amount for that is 6109. So I'm going to use that figure as my price reduction as well. So go back in here. And I'm going to put the amount of the price credit as 6109. Now you can use any price credit you want here. What this is actually asking for is we're going to be comparing traditional financing versus a potential price drop versus a rate buy down. And those are the three main categories we're comparing. There's going to be a fourth one that I'm going to explain to you once we get to the presentation itself. But the whole idea is we want to show that there's a couple of different options. Yeah, your seller can drop his price if he wants to, but he can also do a rate buy down that costs usually less than that price drop would, and he's going to get better results out of it. So in this case, when I'm looking at this, I'm using 6109 here because I want to do it as an apples-to-apples cost to the seller. And actually, Will just reminded me, I got to go remove those 1.25 points. So you're absolutely right, Will. I was using that specifically to find out that information, but I got to make sure and get it out of the report. So I will go back and zero that out. And then we'll run back over to the seller buy down side. Oops, one more field there we got to fill out. All right, so I've got my amount of the price credit, I've got my change in rate. These are equal. So that 6109 is what it costs to get that half a point change in rate. The last part is I need to put in my income to qualify. So let's say it's 42% for this particular product. And then what we're going to do is we're going to talk about presentation title, short description. You can leave these as is if you want to. I would say you probably want to get a little bit jazzier title so they can understand what it is. This one has always been good to me. And then we're going to select which image. So remember I said you could upload different images, a couple of different ones, so you could have one for the seller buy down and one for the open house if you want to. I only did one, so I'm going to choose that same image that I used before. And then of course, make sure you've got a quote date on it. And then generate your link. So Nancy has a question. She says, isn't the buyer paying those points in reality via the seller credit? You know, for concerns of APR, absolutely. And for concerns of disclosure, it is a back-end credit like that. The reason we're not showing it here is because it's taken from the sale proceeds. So generally what's happening is the buyer can deduct those points because it is effectively a seller credit that they're paying for. So they do get the tax deduction on that, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. But what we're trying to show is we don't want to get into the semantics of, you know, where the credit is coming from versus where it ends up versus how the law says it's supposed to be looked at versus, you know, what we want to make it understandable for the consumer. So the bottom line is it's costing the seller 1.5 points to do this. The borrower can write it off, which is really cool. But the good part about this is that it comes out on the back end. The seller doesn't have to come to the table with these points. It's coming off the sale proceeds. But great point there, Nancy. I'm glad you brought that up. So last part, let's preview this guy. And I'm going to explain the virtues of the seller buy down strategy for you. Okay, so I didn't have to do much work to turn that open house flyer into a seller buy down. I had to find out a couple of key pieces of information from my marketing department, and I had to fill in a little bit about, you know, the titles and so forth. But outside of that, it's pretty straightforward. It used all the information I already had. Now, this first product, this is our traditional financing. This is with no buy downs, no credits, anything. This is just a 20% loan, And you can see we've got a loan amount there, got a rate of 4.5, standard term 360, and we can see our cash to close is about the same for each one of these. And then total monthly payment $34.58. Now remember, that's a pity payment with taxes and insurance and HOA. And you can see what our income to qualify there is. It's $98,000. Now the price reduction, when they offer the price reduction, what this is saying is let's reduce your price by that $6,900 that we were talking about. If you were to drop the price to $604, using the same exact loan, same exact rate, you're going to save your borrower $33 a month. Okay. It's also going to clear up an additional $1,000 of income to qualify. So yeah, that could be useful. But let's take that same cost. You know, Mr. Seller, instead of spending that $6,900 on dropping the price, let's spend that on points on the back end. And let's reduce the rate to 4%. What that's going to net me is a payment savings of $143. That's pretty significant as compared to the original strategy, which has a $34.50 payment. We're now down to $33.15. This also frees up some additional income to qualify. As you can see, we initially needed just short of $99,000. We're now just short of $95,000. Now the last column, this is really a key factor because this helps tie all these others together. Now we've shown you what the traditional financing is. We've shown you what happens if you drop your price. We've shown you what happens if you use that same cost to drop the rate. You usually get about a 3 or 4 to 1 return on that price drop or that rate drop over the price drop. But then now we're going to show you in the last column price versus rate. Now what this is how much would you need to reduce your sales price to get the exact same benefit, this $143 savings, as this reduction that only cost you $6,100. And the answer is at the bottom here. Mr. Seller, you'd have to reduce your price by $35,000 to get the same benefit that you can get from that $6,900 point and a quarter that you're going to be paying on the back end. So would you rather pay $6,900 to attract this, or would you rather drop your price by $35,000 to attract this same borrower? So obviously, everybody's a winner in this situation. And we look at the borrower, obviously he's getting the best result out of this with a rate reduction. He's saving money on his payment every month. We've opened up new ability to qualify on this one. Now we only need short of $95,000 instead of short of $99,000. The realtor's happy because he gets to sell this at asking price, which is awesome for his commissions. The seller's happy because he's moving it without having to do another price drop. You know, he's probably, this particular strategy is very useful for properties that have been on the market for a while, especially high value properties, because the price drops on those are obviously a little bit more painful. If I was looking at a $200,000 property, my price drop maybe $1,000 or $2,000 over the course of time. But on a $600,000 property, I'm looking at $10,000 to $20,000 price drops each time. So why would I want to do that? Why would I want to drop my price $35,000 to attract the same borrowers that I can get from a $6,900 concession here? Now, of course, the realtor wins because of the commissions, but he also wins because he's moved a stale property. And you win because you've now developed this new relationship with a realtor. You've helped him move a distressed property. There was something wrong where he couldn't move it before, and you showed him a creative way to get rid of it. So now guess what? Any other properties where he runs into that same kind of thing, he's going to think, oh my God, wait, there's a solution for this. I don't have to drop the price again. I don't have to recommend that to my seller. And in fact, when he comes to me and says, you know, I think I better drop the price, I want to make sure this property moves, I can tell him, no, I've got an alternative for you. So you've now loaded him with some additional ammunition. And of course, coupled with the video component on this, because you've got to follow this one with the video. When this gets shared around, if it gets to a borrower without your information, without your advice on it, they're not going to understand what it is. They're not going to get the impact. But as soon as you explain the impact, it becomes really, really powerful. All right, so it looks like we're just about out of time today, and I think this is probably a pretty good point to stop. Nancy had a question. She says, is this available to view after the webinar? Absolutely. In fact, Nancy, why don't I'm going to actually give you a link to my presentation right now. So if you guys ever wondered about this, when you're looking at one of these presentations, if you want to get that short link back, all you have to do is hit the share button. It automatically copies that link to your clipboard. You can now paste it wherever you want. So I'm going to paste that to you, Nancy. And beyond that, I will tell you that I am recording this entire call. So if you want to revisit this call, all you have to do is go to our Mortgage Coach website. And then you're going to hover over Community and choose Coaching Call Archive. And you can see all the Thursday trainings are loaded in here right next to Dave's Tuesday calls. So today's call will be in here right under the Nikki Groff call that we had on Tuesday, which, by the way, if you didn't get a chance to see this and you're looking at expanding your team a little bit, this is a great presentation on how to structure that team. Nikki's been very successful in growing her team over the years, and she's got some real good points of interest to consider. David's question before we go, how can the agent market the buy down? Buyers are still looking for the lower priced homes. So it's a niche market, David. You're obviously not going to offer the buy downs on, the $200,000 properties that are just listed. You're going to look for the properties that have been on for a little while. They're having a hard time moving them. And usually you're going to look for the higher priced properties. They tend to stick around just a little bit longer. You're also going to look for expired listings. You know what? Maybe they listed it last year and it didn't sell. So here's a solution that I can now revisit an old property for that realtor. He couldn't move it last year. Maybe he can move it this year, given this different type of strategy. And you're also going to look for any property that's already undergone price reductions. So, say it started at $500,000, it's now at $480,000. At this point that round one didn't work for them. And round two is going to be just the same old thing. So the idea behind how your agent, or how you would pitch it to your agent, is, stay away from the price reductions. You don't need to do that. There's an alternative to this. If we can't make it work with this strategy, yeah, last result, go to the price reduction. But before we do that, before we kill your commissions, before we kill that sales price, let's try it this way. So hopefully that helps answer your question, David. I know that it's a very competitive market right now, and in many areas, there's bidding wars going on. And for those cases, you're right, a seller buy down is not going to work. The seller doesn't need to concede anything. He's going to be able to move the home with his eyes closed. But you're looking for the distressed properties. You're looking for the ones that have been online a little bit too long, the ones that have already undergone price reductions, and you're going to go for the higher value properties on these ones. Especially with jumbo financing. You guys know that jumbo financing is pretty rough right now. It's obviously the rates are a little bit higher, but with jumbo financing, if you can knock down that rate a little bit, it certainly helps compared to what everybody else is offering, because everybody's got access to basically the same rates when it comes to jumbos. But if you can offer an option for a buy down and make it work so it kind of looks like they're getting a conforming rate, that's pretty solid. I think it's going to be a good workaround for you to move the property. All right, so hopefully that answers everybody's questions there. I don't see any more in the box right now, but if you guys do have additional questions, send us a note at support@mortgagecoach.com, or just hit Help Inside Edge. That'll take you straight over to our knowledge base where you can do keyword searches for any of these features. Feel free to come back to this Coaching Call Archive. Remember, just Community and then Coaching Call Archive, and you will see today's presentation listed right underneath Nikki's. Thanks again, everybody. Great questions today, and hope you'll be able to join us next week. If you want to get on the beginner call tomorrow, there is a Edge Basics kind of a 101 call. Feel free to stop in. Shoot us a note over at support if you need a registration link for that. But it's the same call every Friday, and all it is nuts and bolts. What is Edge? What are the fields? What do you do with them? So if you guys want to have that real basic startup again, shoot us a note at support. We'll get you the registration link. That is going to be at 12 noon Pacific tomorrow. So I'm sorry, that's 9 a.m. Pacific tomorrow. My mistake. So if you guys are able to make that, let us know. If you need a registration link, Nancy, go ahead and send me a note over at support. I'll be happy to get that link over to you so you can see if that'll work with your schedule. All right, well, with that said, you guys have a wonderful day. Thanks again for joining us, and I hope to see you back here next week. Make sure to tune in at noon for our 10 days of training. We've only got 2 days left here, but it always ramps up toward the end. It's going to be good. So again, any questions or information that you need, support@mortgagecoach.com. We're always happy to help. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.